Welcome to episode 190 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Winning is Everything edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and somebody who got to see his Jacksonville Jaguars go 2-0 on their London trip. His name is Josh Fine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil, and yeah, of course, get to see Jacksonville win 2 weeks in a row in London, so that's good. And yeah, it's Victory Monday because of that, and of course, probably Victory Monday for pretty much everybody that won yesterday or throughout the weekend. And yeah, winning is everything, of course, which leads to Victory Monday. So yeah, we got a lot of to cover here with the Cup and Xfinity and F1 and the NFL. So let's get into it.
Yeah, for me, the Niners demolished the Cowgirls, so that was great. Got to watch that at Buffalo Wild Wings, and all the Cowgirls fans left in the third quarter, which was funny. But yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about fantasy, where last week I ended up having the high score, and this week I'm ninth. It tells you how quickly things change week to week in football. But regular teams are winning, so that's always great. In motorsports land, AJ Allmendinger gets his first win as a dad, first Cup win in 50 races with the win at the Roval, led the most laps. So we'll get into all that and who got eliminated out of the playoffs. Winning is everything. It goes to getting stage wins too, because if it weren't for stage wins and winning in the regular season, Martin Truex probably wouldn't be alive in the playoffs still. Speaking of staying alive in the playoffs, Sam Mayer goes and gets a Hail Mary win in dominant fashion in the Xfinity Series to advance. Him and Justin Allgaier are really the two main cars that were up front and were dominant in that race. Daniel Hemrick, Parker Kligerman, Josh Berry, and Jeb Burton all get eliminated in the Xfinity Series. We'll talk about the points for both series heading to Las Vegas. The 2024 Cup Series schedule is released, or 2024 schedule is released for all three major series. So we'll get into that and the thoughts we both have on some of the changes. Miss Hummer 2.0, Haley Deegan gets a full-time ride with AM Racing in the Xfinity Series. With some sponsors, new sponsors, and some that she's already had, plus, of course, Ford backing. Carson Hocevar is going to finish the season for Legacy Motor Club as a precursor to probably being in the 77 car for Spire. There's also news in regards to Xfinity, some other drivers in Xfinity, and AJ Allmendinger as well, so we'll get into all that. At Qatar, the big news story, other than Fish Lips going and getting his second championship, 14th win of the season. He essentially had no resistance after the start. Lewis Hamilton tried to make a pass early in the race, and it didn't seem like George Russell was aware of that. Lewis ends up taking the blame for it, but it was a racing incident, something that was probably preventable, considering circumstances. There were tire issues at Qatar because of the curbs. Most of the drivers were getting sick because of how hot it was. So, Qatar never fails in terms of how it's bad for, human rights, and it's also bad for Formula One drivers and being able to actually get through the race without getting physically ill or passing out, which Logan Sargent almost did. There was mandatory tire stops. You had to do three tire changes, 3 stops in that race because of the issues that Pirelli had. And then the numerous track limits issues that I don't know how many guys got penalized for that. We brought up football and recap some of the major takeaways, major games that took place as the Raiders get a turnover after they just scored a touchdown. Raiders and Green Bay on Monday Night Football. We'll go into our regular teams, Niners, Jaguars, but then also for fantasy teams. The roundup will talk about Shane Van Gisbergen and Richie Stanaway taking the win at the Bathurst 1000. Brock Feeney and Jamie Whincup were looking like the team and combination I was going to win, but mechanical issues or whatever technical issues ended up knocking them out of the race. MotoGP and Moto2 will be in Indonesia this coming weekend. There will be the Texas Fall Nationals in Dallas coming up this weekend. Petit Le Mans to end the 2023 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And then we'll look at other series, other news that's going on, like Pfaff Motorsports moving over to McLaren after spending many years with Porsche. NASCAR Cup and Xfinity will be at Las Vegas. We'll make our previews and picks. Josh can tell us all things going on in the world of iRacing and Sims with the Sim segment. iRacing has made a new acquisition. I saw on social media as well that Motorsport Games posted video in regards to an IndyCar game, which it's been on and off. We haven't really heard, or we've been waiting on updates in regards to that. So we'll hear from you, Josh, in regards to all that and where you've been racing, and we'll close the deal. So we'll go first into the Bank of America Roval 400 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Tyler Reddick ended up winning the pole. He won the first stage, and that was essentially where he led the majority of the laps there. He led the first 27 laps of the race, and then from then on wasn't able to get back to the lead, unfortunately for him. But he had a fast race car. The Toyotas were fast all weekend, but in the end, three Chevrolets ended up taking up the podium positions. AJ Allmendinger led 46 laps, the most laps in the race. One of three drivers who led double-digit laps, Reddick, aforementioned, and William Clyde Elliott the second. Reddick and Elliott won both stages. William Byron was making AJ Allmendinger work for that victory there late. His paint scheme on his car was as plain and as bland as his personality. Kyle Busch needed to win the race, ran up front for a good amount of the day, ended up finishing third, gets eliminated. Keebler Gibbs finished fourth, Joey Logano fifth. Reddick, Christopher Buescher, Alex Bowman, Elliott, Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain was trying to stay alive after finishing second in points last year, finishes 10th, falls short of the cutoff there. And, mostly Chevrolets. You had, how many Toyotas won? Two Toyotas end up being in the top 10, even though there was plenty of Toyotas early in the race. Ryan Preece finishes 11th, Ryan Blaney 12th, Kyle Larson from tailback after he wrecked in practice to 13th, Bald Spot Dylan, Christopher Bell, who started second, led 9 laps. I'm trying to see. Yeah, Blaney led 6 laps, Kyle Busch led 6 laps. And then Bubba Wallace, who started 4th, ended up getting some stage points, but ended his race in 16th. Gets eliminated. Brad Keselowski also gets eliminated. Martin Truex is lucky that he did so well in the regular season because, my goodness, he's been god-awful in the playoffs. And Denny Hamlin ended up falling out of the race because of an incident he had with the 77 car. And because of the damaged vehicle policy, couldn't get back into the race. Daniel Suarez got into Bubba Wallace and Eric Jones a few laps later, and also took out Michael McDowell in the process. So there was that. And then O. Richard ended up catching fire, and his Totino's pizza rolls were extra toasty there. So so that's about it. AJ Allmendinger, we know he's a noted road racer for many years. His prowess has always been there. Open wheel driver, came to NASCAR, has won the most races in the Xfinity Series on road courses. He won in the Gen 6 car at the first Indianapolis road race because Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin got into it late in that race. He hasn't won a Cup race since then until yesterday. Very emotional because of hadn't won since that race in July of 2021. Probably some changes that are coming along the pike too for how college racing is going to be doing things or where people are going to be at. But for AJ Allmendinger to get that win, hold off one of the guys that's like a likely favorite for this championship with 4 races to go, to get that win in a year where college racing has definitely not been as good as they were last year. And also being a dad, first win as a dad, a lot of things all combined there for AJ Allmendinger, and he's genuinely one of the most. He's a real guy. You always know what he's feeling. He wears his heart on his sleeve. You never have to doubt his emotion or his mentality. I think it's part of what makes AJ Allmendinger such a a likable driver, but also somebody that a lot of people connect with over the years. AJ Allmendinger gets to win, gives colleagues something to kind of hang their hat on for a year that's been really bad, Josh, and holds off William Byron in the process. What did you think about Allmendinger's performance there and some of the other key players that stood out to you during the day itself at the Roval?
Yeah, I mean, the significant win for AJ Allmendinger, and yeah, I think with some of the news that's come out, potentially what they're going to do with the 16 car for colleague racing, and AJ Allmendinger potentially going back into the Xfinity Series next year. There's a lot of emotion there, and obviously the Cup Series is the top level of NASCAR, and you want to be able to win, and he hasn't been able to pull that off since 2016 or 2021, thinking the 16 car there, but hasn't won since that race at the Indianapolis road course. And go back to that win, he won because Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe had shenanigans on that final restart, and he was able to take advantage of their deal there. And now this one won it completely outright, outdrove William Byron there on the final restart, beat Kyle Busch off the line on that restart as well. So for him to win like that and dominate the race, that's a pretty significant win there for him. And you can see the emotion, of course, with the job status potentially, and also first win as a father after the issues that they had with that. So definitely a lot of emotion there and everything. So AJ, we'll see what happens with him, but obviously that's the kind of guy he is, and definitely somebody that a lot of fans want to see do well. So we'll see how he does for his future, if they decide to keep him here or go back to Xfinity. We'll see. Which, thinking if Xfinity, he'll be more competitive than in the Cup Series, like we saw in 2021 and 2022. So we'll see how his future turns out. But the other guys like William Byron, who he's been successful in the past on road courses and has had speed. He's somebody that I thought would have a chance here, but he actually just ended up not leading any laps, but still finished in the top 5. He won Watkins Glen earlier this year, so that was something that I thought, oh, maybe that might happen, but he went out and finished second and didn't need to win, obviously, but he had won Texas already, so he doesn't have to win that one, but still try to protect for his teammate Kyle Larson there, potentially, if Kyle Busch was in a situation to win there. So for Byron, good finish. Kyle Busch comes up short. Would have had to have a better restart there at the end. We really would have had to send it into turn 1, but I think he respects AJ Allmendinger enough to not throw it into the corner and potentially ruin both of their races on the on that final restart there. So good try, but I'm sure Kyle Busch will go back and look at what they needed to improve on this year to have a better campaign next year. So we'll see if they're able to do that. the playoff drivers, obviously, Reddick makes it in. You talked about Truex, who, he's been basically relying on those playoff points that he and wins that he put up in the regular season, and definitely has not performed throughout this playoffs. Is definitely carrying the momentum from those playoff points and everything. And now, potentially he could backdoor his way into the playoffs and into the championship four because of the point advantage that he has from the regular season. And that's going to be interesting if he's able to just back his way into the championship four and then suddenly just like pull a fast one on everybody and win Phoenix. That's going to be something to see. And, I think that should question or be questionable about that. And we get into that later, but that's an interesting one there. Kyle Larson started from the back after his practice incident and made it up to 13th and was able to qualify his way in. So after having a missed opportunity at Texas, didn't have a really good finish at Talladega and was able to get in. So it makes it past this round of 12 after last year in this race, having a similar mistake in the same area of the track in the race, and this one in practice makes the most of this opportunity and gets into the round 8. So it's pretty interesting there. But Wallace, I was surprised by his speed in practice and qualifying. I don't really see him as a road course guy, but obviously the Roval is one of his better tracks, and so they were up in the top 5, for quite a bit. They got stage points, but then they weren't able to capitalize. They had the incident with Austin Cindric and Daniel Suarez there at the end, and I have to wonder if they should adjust the penalty for missing the chicane or go to a similar rule like how they have an open wheel in Formula One, where if you gain time, then you have to relinquish the position or take the penalty. But if you don't gain time, then maybe it's not a penalty at all. So that's an interesting one there. But good effort though, and certainly I think they've improved a lot, and we'll see how they're able to build upon this year and go into next year, and possibly take that next step from being just competing for the playoffs, but also making it past the round of 12 here, because I think the 4 rounds that we have, I think the round of 12, once you get into the round of 8, I think that shows that you're probably in the top level of the sport here. So that's a thing to build upon for him. So we'll see if that happens. And then of course Denny Hamlin already qualified on points, but then they end up having to finish last on the driver performance vehicle policy. So they'll take the last place finish. So at first the Roval race wasn't that chaotic. It seemed like a typical next gen road course race, and then slowly but surely we had more incidents throughout, and then we had just a ton of cautions in the last 25 laps of the race. So last 30 laps. So definitely a lot of incidents there, and potentially could have led to an opportunity for a surprise winner or a playoff shock. But I think the guys that qualified for the round of 8, I think all of them, I think, are the ones that we expected to, and the ones that didn't make it, I think we kind of expected that they wouldn't make it in. So I think it kind of played out to the way that we expected. But I think the only thing shocking to me was the playoff driver not winning. So kudos to AJ Allmendinger possibly getting a final Cup win here at the Roval.
Yeah, and for when you consider what the changes coming along, whether AJ is a part of that or not, like Josh was mentioning, he did say it in his post-race comments on the track that you never know when your last win is going to come. And talking about 50 races in the Cup Series, think about people who went 400 something races or however many to get a win. So AJ Allmendinger is somebody who's used to winning, especially when he was in Xfinity. He won a lot on different types of racetracks. So something that we have to see in what Kaulig Racing is trying to do in essentially a kind of starting over all again in 2024 with new drivers, it seems, and some new things going on in the Cup side and also on the Xfinity side. It looks like there's going to be a lot of movement there as well. So for the first time, I think in a long time, there's a lot of turnover at Kaulig Racing, which is something they haven't really had. So we'll see what happens with that. In terms of the guys that got eliminated, I mean, Brad Keselowski, ever since his car's come along, generally has run well on road courses, but this weekend he just didn't have it. The team didn't have it really. Bubba, Josh, you mentioned it. I mean, it was the best I think he's ever run on a road course, really. So it wasn't like he didn't give himself a chance. The strategies and traffic and then getting stuck in the field probably was what kind of held him back. The math didn't work in his favor either, outside of him going kamikaze and doing a Keebler Gibbs or something, or some of these other asshats that go and run over everybody to win races. That was the only way he was going to make it, and he wasn't going to do that. You look at Ross Chastain, Trackhouse Racing, for all the expansion and all the other talk that goes on with Justin Marks' team. They've been off for a good part of this season. The wreck at Darlington, which Fat Felon basically, I think, threatened his life, really took away the Ross Chastain that we all knew. The Hail Melon Ross Chastain, the guy that was willing to go for it all. And I think that incident also really affected that organization in general, because they went from being a contender on a week-to-week basis to disappearing. And granted, of course, Suarez has basically been non-existent for the majority of the season too, which people are talking about in different circles in regards to what his future may be, with the likes of Zane Smith in the works, and also Shane Van Gisbergen. But Ross Chastain leading into a year in 2024 where they're going to be driving, he's going to be driving the Busch light car starting next year. The sponsorship money and dollars that they've been spreading across both of those cars. I guess they'll be able to spread it across the 99 and whatever number car that it's going to be for Zane Smith, because Busch is going to sponsor Ross Chastain, but they won't. The best case scenario is finishing fifth in points. I mentioned those three, and then Kyle Busch, he was wildly inconsistent. Got to a point where he was doing stuff that I've never seen Kyle Busch do before, which is crash a lot. I mean, even when he was a rookie, he didn't crash at the clip that he was doing here the last few months. And he even said it. I mean, Kyle Busch is not big on talking, but he's like, I need to change how I'm doing things, because whatever I'm doing is not working. I'm wrecking every week like 10 laps in the races, which is not Kyle Busch. And he had a clean run yesterday, but it wasn't enough. They've been lacking speed. The RCR cars have been lacking speed probably for the last 3-4 months. And I think that's part of the reason why Kyle has been overdriving, even for somebody of his talent and his success. Even he knows that he has to go and push a little harder, but these cars don't really respond to that. I think it's probably part of the reason why Jimmy has had such a big problem getting back into driving these Cup cars, because he's used to driving hard, and it's more of a finesse-based vehicle. And Kyle Busch is somebody that can kind of play both sides, but he's a hard charger as well. So it's something that we're going to have to see going into 2024, how RCR responds, how they build with Kyle, because that's their lead dog, because Austin Dillon sucks. So we'll see what happens with that. But now we're into the round of 8, 2 cookie cutters, and Martinsville. So we'll see what happens with all of that. The points heading into the round of 8. William Byron leads the point standings, plus 20 over the cut line. Martin Truex goes from being on the bump spot essentially to plus 15 over the cut line. Denny Hamlin is plus 11, and Kyle Larson is plus 3 over Christopher Buescher. Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell are minus 8, and Ryan Blaney is -10. So it's pretty close. It's not all that crazy to think there could be a lot of turnover here. If William Byron struggles at Las Vegas, for example, it could flip this thing right on its lid. Martin Truex hasn't really had a good race so far in the playoffs through 6 races. So if he goes out there and wins on Sunday, he changes the narrative altogether. But Denny Hamlin coming off of finishing last when it didn't really matter. But Kyle Larson probably needs to win because he hasn't really shown the consistency over the season to make it in on points. I think William Byron has been that guy, whether he wins a race or he puts himself in position. But the curiosity is definitely with those 4 drivers. Chris Buescher, can he back his way into the Final 4, give himself a chance? Reddick has been inconsistent, but when he's fast, he's really fast. Christopher Bell has a similar field to last year. He hasn't been as prolific, but he's right there. Adam Stevens, they took a gamble yesterday, tried to go and get track position early in the race with the pitting, and it worked, but it didn't work out late in the day. And Ryan Blaney, he's free rolling. So I think that's a scary proposition for everybody, that Ryan Blaney, I think both the Ford guys are just dice rolling right now. The expectations are for the Toyota guys, the Gibbs guys, the 3 Gibbs guys, and of course 2311, the 4 Toyotas, and for the 2 Hendrick cars, they're expected to be in this spot right here. Ryan Blaney's run well enough to be in the final 8, and Chris Buescher has done that as well, but the Fords have definitely been off this year, so they're free rolling, which I think is a scary deal for them. It feels in a lot of ways it harkens back to last year with what Chase Briscoe was doing, not as a winner, but putting himself in positions to gamble. And because of that, you could possibly go and get a win in one of these races and advance into the Final 4, and who knows? He might be able to go and pull what Joey Logano did last year or what Larson did a couple of years ago. So we'll move forward into the Xfinity Series race, the Drive for the Cure 250, which saw Sam Mayer lead 50 of the race's 67 laps. The race was so quick, even with the late cautions, it only just got to 2 hours. So it shows how relatively there's only 4 cautions, 2 for stages, 1 was for stage 1. They had a stage 2 plus a spin for Connor Daly, a 1 debris caution, and then the wreck between Justin Allgaier and Jeb Burton, which in turn kind of took Jeb Burton. He was really needing a miracle, but that wreck basically took him out of it. Sam Mayer needed the win. He gets the win, leads 50 laps. Allgaier led 10, so 60 of the race's 67 laps were led by 2 drivers. Cole Custer locked himself in after the first stage, finished second. Josh Berry lost power steering, but finished third. Riley Herbst fourth, so 2 Stewart-Haas cars in the top 5. Kaz Gralla fifth after starting 14th in the Sam Hunt Toyota. Parker Kligerman finished 6th after starting 6th. Daniel Hemrick finished 2nd in both stages, ended up finishing 7th, falling 2 points short there. John Hunter Nemechek, after starting tailback, won stage 2, finished 8th. Austin Hill 9th, Sheldon Creed 10th, holding on for dear life, backing in there. Sammy Smith and Chandler Smith 11th and 12th. Myatt Snyder, the 19, is of course running for owner's points, finishes 14th. I mentioned the other 2 guys that are involved in incidents. Alex LeBay started 10th, finished 15th. Jordan Taylor, driving for Colleague, started 12th, finished 16th. And that's really it there. Buckshot Jones was started 11th, but ended up 29th. there were 33 cars on the lead lap. Only Jeb Burton, Connor Daly, Ryan Ellis, and Jeb Burton and Connor Daly were a lap down. The other 3 cars, Ellis, Allgaier, Moffitt, fell out of the race with various issues. But yeah, Mayer goes now for the 3rd time this season, wins on a road course. 3 wins in his career, all on road courses. Last road course of the year. So we'll see what Sam Mayer can do on ovals to try and give himself a chance to make the Final Four. Cole Custer quietly has gone about his business here in the first round of the playoffs, and now he puts himself. He's right now 2 points out of the cutoff there, so he has a little bit of work to do, but I think there's something to be said. He's won at Homestead before multiple times. I also look at Las Vegas as an opportunity race because they're going back there for the 2nd time. I mean, granted, John Hunter's dominated the cookie cutter tracks for the majority of the season, but Stuart Haas is putting all their eggs in trying to get Cole Custer across the way, at least get him into the Final Four. So he's a dangerous factor for sure. And then, Parker Kligerman gave himself a chance to try and get in. Wasn't enough. Josh Berry, it was similar to what Kyle Busch finishes 3rd, but he needed the win. Daniel Hemrick ran up front most of the day, but didn't have the position when he needed it most, and unfortunately falls short. Falls a couple points short. Now, of course, he's going to be moving up to the Cup Series, driving the 31 car for Kaulig next year. In terms of the driver's points, it's the driver's points. It shows prior. Oh, that's prior to. Oh no, that's the Reese. That's the overall points. Because I'm trying to see here. Yeah, so. It was, Daniel Hemrick ended up finishing 2 points out, and Kligerman was 5 points out. And then, Barry and Burton. But, so that was that. I mean, John Hunter Nemechek is glad they don't have any more road races this year because he's been the drizzling shits at road courses this year. Destroyed a lot of equipment, but he ended up getting a top 10 out of it. We talked about cars that were going to make the show. Well, Boris said ended up failing to qualify because they had gear, I think, rear axle issues or gear issues, which, I mean, that if Fat Felon said that was a Christmas present, that was a lemon that he gave him, not even having a vehicle that could even run a lap. It's pretty pathetic. Preston Pardis ends up not having the pace or whatever to make the show, which is shocking because he's been able to qualify on speed for a lot of the races that he's been in, whether he's driven for DGM or for his family organization. Andy Lally also had issues with a new organization, and then the 74 team with Devin Jones, whoever he is. Interesting. Didn't really think that those 4 guys were going to be the ones that failed to qualify, but the way things worked out, that's what happened. So, Sam Mayer gets that victory, Josh. Credit to him, credit to Junior Motorsports keeping themselves alive. He is one of 2 guys left for Junior Motorsports to try and get that championship in the Xfinity Series. He's 2 points above the cut line. Got some work to do, honestly, with that. I mean, John Hunter and Austin Hill, the top 3 guys, have a little bit of a cushion, but Sam Mayer is going to have to put together a really solid round here to possibly give himself a chance to get a championship run at Phoenix. But he has shown that in late race situations, he's been able to clutch up, and in this case, on Saturday, just flat out whooped everybody.
Yeah, Sam Mayer somehow just is able to figure out how to win on road courses after he's been here for 2 full seasons now, and winning on road courses, wouldn't expect it, but now seems like he's the road course guy now, and we'll have to see how he makes it into the Final Four here. definitely a tough task, but he's gonna have to rely on the knowledge and experience of his junior motorsports teammates. We've seen the one car has won before at Las Vegas with Josh Berry behind the wheel in 2021. So we'll see if he gives him some pointers there, and how he's able to go out and potentially win the race or get setup help or something like that. And then of course got Homestead coming up, and then Martinsville. And we've seen Sam Mayer run up front at Martinsville before, have an opportunity to win. Go back to last year with him and Ty Gibbs in the spring Martinsville race there in Xfinity. So we'll see how close he can get to possibly making it into the Final Four in Xfinity. As far as the other people, you talked about Josh Berry. Josh Berry's been actually a pretty good road racer here at the Charlotte Roval based on his past results, but just came up short here. Definitely a long shot to get in on points and needed to win to get in, but didn't have the speed and everything like his teammate did. So he doesn't make it in. And I saw on social media a lot of people questioning whether Josh Berry really should be in the 4 car next year because he didn't really win anything in Xfinity this year. But I think look at his career performance so far in NASCAR. I think he deserves the Cup ride, and look at how he was able to perform in Cup this year in Hendrick equipment. Did a solid job there, and was able to convince SHR to sign him without any sponsorship. So coming in, so obviously I think he does deserve the ride there. So just not going to be able to compete for a title, and I guess go out for wins here. So we'll see if he's able to do that in the last 4 races here at his Xfinity career with Junior Motorsports. Kaz Gralla, solid road racer, finished in the top 5. Him and Parker Kligerman were fighting for position. Potentially, Daniel Hemrick, if he would have passed both of them, would have made it into the final or to the round of 8 over Sheldon Creed. But 3-wide finish there, pretty interesting. Parker Kligerman trying to get one more position, and then Kaz Gralla was able to pass him back, coming to the line, and Daniel Hemrick almost got them both. So that's pretty interesting there. Hemrick, of course, gets eliminated, but he's going to Cup next year. So we'll see how he does in Cup. But Xfinity career definitely fairly lacking in terms of wins. Somebody that just gets solid top 10, solid driver, but just hasn't ever won except for that one time in the Xfinity Series championship race in 2021. Of course, John Hunter Nemechek, Austin Hill, 2 guys that we've seen do good on the road courses in the past. Obviously, John Hunter coming from 38th, Austin Hill coming from 8th to finish 9th. So, this is going to be interesting. I think Austin Hill, obviously, he won the Las Vegas race back in the spring. So, we'll see what he's able to do here and lock himself in. John Hunter also has been very good, probably the better driver in 1.5 miles. So, we'll see if either one of those guys dominates Las Vegas or Homestead, 2 unique 1.5 mile tracks there. Sheldon Creed barely gets in, and let's see what he's able to do. I think he's a long shot to get in, and I think the 2 Smiths, Sammy and Chandler, we'll have to see if they get in. But Sammy Smith's been good in the past on short tracks, so that could be possible as a potential wild card factor. Chandler Smith, we've seen him do good at 1.5 miles as well, so don't count him out just yet. But with how things are going with him in colleague racing, potentially getting out of that deal and going to TRD, it might be damaged goods the rest of the season. So we'll see. And Justin Allgaier and Jeb Burton got into that crash, and I think both of them were going to miss the corner, and Jeb Burton just really missed the corner as well. So first corner on the final next to final restart. So we'll see how these guys do in the next round. Starting to get tight, and now we'll see who's going to make the final round here for the playoffs. But the Roval, I think not a surprise to see Sam Mayer win after what he's been able to do recently in road courses. But now I think he has got his work cut out for him to be able to go out and win or point his way into this championship 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of what do you call Cole Custer, you look at the drivers that are outside. I mean, Chandler Smith, I don't think, as you mentioned, because of the likelihood that he's not going to be there next year, are they really going to support him? Sammy Smith is the same situation. And to be honest, ever since he won that race at Phoenix earlier this year, it's been a steady kind of decline. And whether it's inconsistencies, wrecking cars, whatever, he hasn't really been doing much of anything. Chandler Smith, he was winning races earlier in the year, and then they've fallen off too. And it doesn't seem like Kaulig knows what their focus is right now. You have a lame duck driver in the Cup Series. It seems like you have one lame duck driver in terms of not being with the organization. Another one who just got eliminated and will be going to Cup. You got a lot of turmoil there. So, and Sheldon Creed, he needs to win a race. He even said it, that basically the only way he's going to make it into the Final Four is if he wins. He said it on Saturday post-race, so I wouldn't disagree with him. But I also look at the tracks that they have there. Las Vegas is a track that has suited him very well, and Homestead, if there is any track that I think really suits or fits the driving style of Sheldon Creed, it's Homestead. Can he go and pull off a Tyler Reddick, get that elusive first win, get himself into the Final Four, and give himself a chance at Phoenix with his teammate who he doesn't get along with, and John Hunter and whoever the hell else, and Allgaier more than likely. That's an interesting thing that we're going to see with those guys. Mentioned Miss Hummer 2.0 getting that's before I get there. John Hunter Nemechek leads after the reset. He's plus 37 over the cut line. Austin Hills plus 21, Allgaier plus 17, and Sam Mayer plus 2 over Cole Custer. Chandler Smith minus 11, Sheldon Creed minus 12, and Sammy Smith minus 14. In the owners' points standings, the 19 ended up getting eliminated. The 10 is still in terms of the owners' points. The 10 is still in. The 2 and the 19 got eliminated this round. They got eliminated. The 2, 19, 8, and 27. So the top 4, their top 5 or 6 are exactly the same as the driver points, but then the 10 car is still in the owners points championship, tied with the 18 of Sammy Smith. That's curious. I need to check the owners points standings if the 9 car made it through. The 9 car actually did make it through. All right, so the Brad Keselowski to Trackhouse with Chastain, Kyle Busch in the 22. William Clyde Elliott is still in the playoff, at least with the owners' points. So there's 3 Hendrick cars that are involved in the playoff, plus 3 Toyotas. The 19 didn't make it through. That's what it is. The 11, the 20, and the 45. So 3 Toyotas, 3 Hendrick Chevys, and then the 2 Fords of Buescher and Ryan Blaney. Okay. All right. So that's something to look at as we move forward. So, Deegan gets the call up to run the Xfinity Series full-time next year. Then it'll be a number 15. They've been running the number 25 with Moffitt. From what takeaways we've gotten between the way they were talking about him when he won the truck race and some other things, maybe he's not going to be there next year, or maybe they're expanding to 2 cars. We don't know. But Deegan, who has barely sniffed the front of a truck series field, is getting a multi-year deal to run in the Xfinity Series. She ran, one race in the Xfinity Series last year at Vegas for SS Greenlight and finished top 15. So that's the only sample size that we have to work with. Is that enough merit to go and get a ride? No, it's more a case of, she has a vagina and she has a lot of money, and people insist on her being marketable, even though she's got a whiny voice and she's got like horse teeth. But whatever, I guess she's coming up. We'll see what it is. That's Ford's essentially their entire driver development pipeline is her, which tells you how bad Ford's driver development pipeline is. But she gets a deal amongst all the changes that are going to be going on in the Xfinity Series next year. Movement across a lot of teams. Hailie Deegan ends up getting that job. Nonek is going to be at Homestead. I think I mentioned it last week. We talked about Chandler for the MBM. Chandler Smith, he was with Kyle Busch Motorsports, driving in the Toyotas for a few years before he moved over to Kaulig. Now it seems like he's going to buy himself out of that to go and drive the 18 car, I would assume, or the 20. It doesn't really matter, whichever one it is. One of those cars is going to be with a fully funded driver, and he fits the bill. And then the other one is to be determined. I think there's a laundry list of drivers that would be taking over that second full-time drivers' championship car. And then the third car would be for the owners. So that'll be something to look at there. You mentioned Hocevar will finish out the rest of the season for Legacy, and which isn't shocking because of how he's ran for the organization there. Gumby Cindric, to surprise of nobody, will continue in the 2 car until the end of time, and so that's another one there, and yeah. I think those are some of the news pieces. Nothing from the truck series because they aren't coming back until Homestead. But yeah, that's. I guess we have to talk about it. I mean, what did you think, Josh, when you heard that Hailie Deegan's moving up to the Xfinity Series and has got a multi-year deal to go and run Xfinity relative to what she basically has done since getting into the ARCA series, 2-3 years ago, where there really hasn't been a whole lot of great results.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're really hanging on the hat that she ran top 15 in one Xfinity race on a 1.5-mile track for a mid-level team. So, yeah, hasn't really produced anything in the truck series. I guess you can make the argument that the truck series, the racing, I guess, doesn't really help in a way. I guess the way that drivers race in there is a lot different than the Xfinity Series, and maybe it's drivers are more level-headed and give her more respect or something for getting in wrecks and stuff. But she's also, I think, crashed a lot in the Xfinity Series or in the truck series. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of whatever to me. The results, if she's good enough in the Xfinity Series, she'll produce. She's not good enough, then we'll see her out of the Xfinity Series either at the end of next year or the year after. I'm sure they'll give her 2 years, one to get acclimated to the series, and then one to prove if she's for real or not, unless it goes completely horribly in 2024. So, that's what it is, I think, for her. But yeah, not really surprised that she's going to Xfinity, but yeah, probably deserve, or probably should have had more results there for sure. Hocevar and Legacy Motor Club, yeah, that's not surprising there. He's been doing well in that car. Obviously, they put in Mike Rockenfeller for the road course, but that had already been predetermined and everything. So Hocevar been excelling in that ride, and definitely think, if it weren't for John Hunter Nemechek going to that car, I mean, I think he definitely fit right into that organization. But he's going to Spire, of course. But yeah, he definitely is good in that car. Definitely somebody that we're looking out for in the next couple of years. See, he's somebody that's actually gone. He's in the Truck Series right now full time, and he's already proven that he's been competitive in Cup. So I think that's the difference between him and Haley Deegan there. So yeah, definitely somebody I think that we're going to look out for here in the next couple of seasons. That's going to be really good. I think if with what he's been able to do in the legacy cars, can he do that in Spire cars? So we'll see if that's the difference or not. But yeah, definitely somebody that we're going to have to look out for in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's we're gonna see what he's done. Made a big step in his career with his truck prowess, and we don't know. He might end up getting to the Final Four and have a chance to win a championship there. A protege of Ross Chastain and everything with Nice, and if once he leaves Nice, then I don't know what's going to happen with them, because he's basically carried them on his back. But we'll see what happens with all that. Deegan's going to be what she's going to be, and we'll keep on looking at whatever's going on accordingly. The schedule came out for all three major national series. We'll gonna go and see if I can so we'll start with the Truck Series schedule. Next year they're gonna, of course, they start with Daytona. They run 3 consecutive races, Daytona, Atlanta, Las Vegas before an off week. Then they run Bristol on the first of 2 races at Bristol will be on the concrete, not on dirt, the first race. And then CoTA, they'll have another off week before they go to Martinsville in Texas, where they move the Texas race back to the spring. 2 more weeks off. Then they run 5 in a row. Kansas, Darlington, North Wilkesboro, which is the All-Star weekend, Charlotte, and which is Coke 600 weekend, and then Gateway before the real fun starts. They'll take 3 weeks off, race at Nashville, another week off, 2 races at Pocono and IRP, 2 weeks off, and then they'll race at Richmond, and then I don't know if that's July. The July and August weekends, I think, are the ones for the Olympics. I might be wrong, but whatever. It's the Truck Series schedule just kind of is goofy, to say the least. They'll run Richmond. That'll be the cutoff for the playoffs. They'll have an off week before they go to Milwaukee. Then they'll have 2 weeks to get to Bristol and Kansas back to back. They'll race 3 weeks in a row, actually. Kansas will be the cutoff for the round of 10. Start the round of 8 with Talladega. They'll have a couple of off weeks, go to Homestead, and then they'll last 2 off weeks of the year. Then they'll race 3 races in 3 weeks in a row: Homestead, Martinsville, and Phoenix. Yet again, holding the championship for whatever reason. In the Xfinity Series, they'll race 33 races again. It's been the norm in the Truck Series for many years. It was 25. Now it's 23. In Xfinity, 33 races. They start the year with 4 consecutive races: Daytona, Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Phoenix before a week off. Then they'll race 6 weeks in a row: CoTA, Richmond, Martinsville, Texas, Talladega, and Dover. Then they have Darlington sandwiched in between 2 off weeks. And after that, May 18th, which is the All-Star weekend, they will race, for 9 races in a row. And with Charlotte, Portland, Sonoroma, Iowa, which of course will be on the Cup schedule as well. I'll return to Iowa for the first time in a few years for Xfinity. New Hampshire, Nashville, the Chicago Street Course, Pocono, and IMS Oval instead of the road course. I wish they were running at IRP. That's what they should be doing. And then the Olympic break is 3 weeks off. So yeah, that worked out with the Truck Series. Before they go to Michigan, Daytona, Darlington, Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol, which is the cutoff for the playoffs. The Xfinity playoffs do not start until the end of September next year because of the Olympic break. They'll race Kansas, Talladega, and Charlotte, the Charlotte Roval, so it's a wild round. Then Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, which doesn't change, and then Phoenix. So the last 4 races stay the same. Essentially, the playoff itself doesn't change. Bristol was where the playoff started this year, but instead it's the cutoff. So that's Xfinity. And then Cup Series, the Olympic break is what stands out, of course, for them. They have, outside of those 2 weeks, they do not have an off. Those are the only 2 off weeks that the Cup Series has the whole year. They start, of course, at the Clash on February 4th, which is the week before the Super Bowl, and at the Coliseum. Then they race the Daytona 500 on the 18th, February 18th. Then they go to Atlanta, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Bristol, CoTA. Richmond is going to be on Easter night it'll be on Easter Sunday night at Richmond, which will be something and very cold. They'll race at Martinsville, Texas, Talladega, Dover, Kansas, and Darlington. And Darlington will be on Mother's Day weekend before they run the All-Star race. The rest of the Fox portion of the schedule is Coca-Cola 600, Gateway, and Snoroma. So that'll be the first 16 races. Father's Day weekend returns as a date for a race. It used to be at Michigan for many, many years now. Iowa Speedway will host their first ever Cup race on Father's Day Sunday night on USA for that race. Then they'll go to New Hampshire, Nashville, the Chicago Street Course, Pocono, and the Brickyard 400, the 30th anniversary of the Brickyard 400, which will then lead into the Olympic break. So they'll race 23 weeks in a row. They'll race for 6 months. Basically, for 6 months, there's going to be a Cup Series race until they get a break. And then they'll run out the last 14 weeks of the season consecutively. Richmond, Michigan, Daytona is not the cutoff this coming year. The Darlington Southern 500 will be. Instead of the first race in the playoff, there'll be the cutoff, which will be something. The playoffs start with Atlanta Motor Speedway, which is a super speedway type race. Watkins Glen, for the first time since they returned to NASCAR, the NASCAR schedule in 1986 has been moved from their August date to September. So that'll be interesting how that all works out weather-wise. And then Bristol will be the cutoff of the round of 16. Kansas, Talladega, Charlotte is the same as this year. Then Las Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, same as this year, and Phoenix. So the only real adjustments in the playoff is in the first round. The second and third and final round are all the same racetracks. But some changes there. 2 races at Atlanta, not really too keen on that. Moving the Glen into the playoff. I mean, I love Watkins Glen, so I don't really mind it. But when you consider how this car races on road courses, is that really the best track to be going to? I mean, the Roval is a carnage-filled deal, but I mean, are we really getting the best out of it if we're racing at Watkins Glen? It was a runaway this year. The rest of these races, I mean, Talladega is Talladega. I'll never be a fan of it, but the other races I can kind of deal with outside of Phoenix. Phoenix is terrible, but we're stuck having to deal with having Phoenix on the schedule for 2 races. Having the Brickyard 400 back is great. Also, with it leading into the Olympic break is cool. in the 30th anniversary. So hopefully there'll be a lot of history and throwback, or maybe I don't know about throwback schemes, but a lot of discussions about the days of whether it's Jeffy or Jimmy or Tony, all the winning they did there, Biggie, etc., etc. Dale Jarrett, of course, being on the NBC telecast. I'm sure they'll talk about it because he's a 3-time winner there. Chicago returns for a second year, so that'll be interesting. Iowa Speedway, for the first time ever, gets on the Cup schedule. Their race for the Cup and Xfinity Series is a month before the IndyCar doubleheader, so we'll see how that affects the attendance there. Texas moves back to the spring, where they were for many, many years. That's where their first date was, in the springtime in April, so that'll probably be a lot more palatable for the fans to go to. Richmond racing on Easter Sunday night. Last couple of years it's been Bristol dirt, but instead it moves back a couple weeks there. So yeah, we went through all the schedules, certain changes. I mean, the Truck Series schedule is really disjointed, and I don't know, they should probably cut down to 20 races and start their season later. I think it would make more sense to condense their schedule. They don't have to race at Daytona. If you really want to race at Daytona, they could race in Daytona in July or August or whatever, instead of opening the season there. I think it's stupid. Because also when you consider in the Truck Series, they just yard sale half the vehicles there too. They used to, for years and years, had 25 races. But I think the way the series is now and the way the purses are, they'd be better off having less. You go and you have 14, 12 races or something, and then, or something like that. You'll run the first 12 races of the season, or 14 races, and that leaves 6 races. So 3 and 2, and no, that doesn't work. So I'm trying to figure out the number it would be. So it was like 14, 3, 17, 3, 2, 1. I don't know. I guess a 2-race round probably would be anticlimactic, but I don't know. I think if it were me, I would do a 3-race round just like they do in these other rounds, instead of having a 1-race playoff, winner and take all kind of deal. It would probably be a little bit more, it'll be fairer than what they have right now. So if they did a 20-race schedule, you could run the first 14 races of the season, eliminate down to whatever 8 drivers, and then after 3 races, eliminate down to 4, and have a 3-race championship, and whatever, affect the points accordingly and determine a champion that way. But that would be me. What did you think, Josh, about the schedules and some of the changes? I mean, obviously you go to Daytona for the races there. So how does the change of moving Daytona back affect your possibility of going to watch the Coke Zero 400 and anything else that really stood out to you?
I think logistically, I mean, like for me going to Daytona, I don't think it changes like the ability to go to Daytona or anything like that. I mean, in fact, the weekend might work out better for me personally, but on that weekend. But I do think it does change the intensity of it being a elimination, cutoff race in terms of the regular season. Obviously, it's still a wild card race because things can still happen where somebody gets eliminated, or not eliminated, but has to race their way in the playoffs, just like at Talladega in the spring. Obviously there's opportunity there, and I still think there's going to be the same level of desperation, but all the attention that they put on making this the elimination race, and how they marketed it the last couple of years, like why is this race supposed to be important? Now that we've moved it from its traditional date on the 4th of July, it does lose some of that. And then moving the cutoff race to Darlington, obviously now we're gonna there's gonna be no surprises, who has the last chance to make it in. And of course, if somebody does make it in, it's gonna be because they figured out the setup at Darlington and they were able to handle that track. So yeah, I mean, from that perspective, yeah, that's kind of interesting, why they switched it up and talked about it in recent weeks, of course, but having the schedule tied to the TV broadcaster and having the Olympic break put in, I think that does hamper their decision making for how they want to market the sport. I think if they're gonna have a 2 week break, they may as well just adopt Formula One's idea and have a 2 week break built in at the end of the summer or in the middle of the summer, and give them off time mandatory, not just because the worldwide sporting event is going on and you have the broadcaster and broadcasting personalities, Rick Allen, Dale Jr., Lee Diffie, Marty Snyder, probably all going to be in the Olympics in Paris. So, from that perspective, they may as well just have that built in every year, and still trying to understand why they had to switch the dates. So I guess they had to have Darlington on the Labor Day weekend, and then because they're pushing everything a week back, so they had to have Darlington on Labor Day weekend. Daytona still has it on the same calendar date, but it's just the schedule itself being pushed back. And then I don't really understand starting out with Atlanta, both in the beginning of the year after Daytona, and then at the end of or the start of the playoffs, because then it definitely leads to a lot of carnage going in. And I was listening to Denny Hamlin's podcast earlier, before this show, and he's talking about how the schedule doesn't really show who's the best driver throughout the year. It's just who gets the most lucky. And I think at certain points during the season, definitely the luck is more of a factor than the actual ability of the drivers and to test who is the best driver in the Cup Series. So I kind of agree with that. And starting out the schedule with Atlanta is really questionable. Also, don't really get Watkins Glen going into the playoffs. Obviously, it's going to be its most high-profile race, but Watkins Glen, the last couple of years, hasn't been as good as it was previously with the next-gen cars. So because it obviously races too good at road courses because it's a road course car, not a stock car. So everything on the schedule. I mean, certain parts I like. Iowa Speedway, I think, for years they were talking about getting it on the Cup Series, before it went away on the Cup schedule or on the, Xfinity schedule. Now they are bringing it back onto the Cup schedule, and I guess they were able to work it out with the IndyCar people, and because, obviously they have their big weekend there as well. So I think Iowa's going to actually race a little bit differently than what people have expected from short tracks. I think just because it's so worn out and there's so many lane choices there at that racetrack, I think it's going to probably mask some of the deficiencies that we've seen with next gen on short tracks and it being hard to pass. So I think it's, as long as Goodyear brings a decent tire, I think, you're going to see tires chewed up throughout the weekend and provide a lot of variance in the running order throughout that race. So, that should be interesting there. Of course, Texas Motor Speedway out of the playoffs, which is a good thing. And I guess it goes back to their spring date back in the spring. Of course, I would say just to have Texas and CoTA back to back, they probably would never agree to it. But logistically, you have you start at Daytona, go to Atlanta, and you have the spring West Coast swing there, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and then you go to Bristol, and then you go back to CoTA. So going to Tennessee from Phoenix, and then going to Texas, back to Virginia, and then 2 races in Virginia, in Martinsville and Richmond, and then you go back to Texas there. So I feel like logistically, in terms of, they still have to go back to North Carolina, I guess. So it's still doesn't make quite as much sense there. But I guess logistically, I feel like it's just easier if you have consecutive races and in the same state and just get them out of the way, I guess, in terms of that. But maybe that doesn't work out as well as what I thought of when you have to continuously travel back to North Carolina or wherever to get cars and stuff. So that's interesting. Obviously, they get rid of the Bristol Dirt and replacing the date with Richmond on Easter Sunday night. So we'll see how that works out with the next gen there on a Sunday night race in the spring. And then the Nashville Super Speedway was a night race in last year or this season, and then last year it was supposed to be a daytime race, and then it rained, and then it turned into a night race, and it ended up being interesting there. So and then of course the Indianapolis Motor Speedway returning to the oval, big significant anniversary there, so they had to do that for the 30th anniversary, and then of course with them switching back to the oval, why didn't they get rid of the Charlotte Roval and go back to the running the oval for the date that the Charlotte Roval is on there instead? Because obviously the Coke 600 last couple of years has been interesting with the next gen car. So a lot of interesting choices here, and some questionable decisions by NASCAR. And obviously, like I said, it kind of shows the decision making when you're tied to a TV partner for one half of the year and everything. You have to wonder if they have to start rethinking that so that they're not bound by the TV partner and everything. And of course, the TV partner and Fox saying that, well, we need to have 2 super speedways to start the year with Daytona and Atlanta, the fake super speedway. So that's a lot of interesting decision there, and we'll see how well it works out and everything. So I'm not like too broken up about it, but definitely that's something that shows I guess the priorities and that they have in NASCAR. So still gonna be an interesting season, I bet. But it's definitely going to play out a lot differently than what we've seen in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I mean, they just want to go and destroy a lot of race cars, I think, is what Fox is all about. They want to have stupid highlight reel crashes to talk about to start the season. It almost, when you're starting with the Daytona 500, which is the biggest race, it's a race that everyone wants to win, but you're determining it in a manner which you're basically waiting for somebody to make a mistake and destroy half the field. And then Atlanta, which is just a joke, but whatever. They don't need 2 races. If you're going to have them open the playoffs, then they could end up not being on the schedule or whatever. You could run a different place. I am also because if you're going to take away races from the Northeast and make them only have 1 race weekend a year, you can do that with places like Darlington, Daytona, Talladega, Richmond. Until you make a product that's actually functional on a super speedway or on a short track, you don't need 2 races at a lot of these tracks. It's dumb. And you could go to other places. And NASCAR, with all the money they make, they can invest in some of these places. They're full of crap, is what it is, and why they don't do that. Well, we'll see what happens with the schedule and how everything kind of lands or goes out there accordingly. All right, let's move over to Formula One, the Qatar Grand Prix, which saw a lot of people getting sick. A lot of people having issues during the day. Sprint race weekend, saw Oscar Piastri get his first victory as a Formula One driver, albeit not official, but in a sprint race after qualifying on pole. And then Fish Lips getting the championship with relatively no resistance in that deal. Did have a bad start, but was able to recover. 3 safety cars, a lot of argy-bargy going on. Fish Lips ends up winning the championship. Sergio Perez has a horrendous weekend, and now Karen Horner's come out and said they don't have a top driver lineup anymore like other teams do. Well, no shit. When you go and run drivers out the door that were plenty capable, you're not going to have that. And Sergio Perez hasn't been a top line driver since winning at Azerbaijan, to be fair. The race itself, the actual Grand Prix itself, saw Fish Lips run away without much of an issue after the first lap incident, which George Russell, I think they talked about it in the pre-race, because of the tires situation that Pirelli didn't bring good tires for this racetrack, the curbs being an issue. It was looking like a situation like Indianapolis 2005, but instead they couldn't park all the cars. They ended up making mandatory pit stops. It sounds like during the tire wars time of in NASCAR back in the late 80s or whatever, when they were having to mandate pit stops, and even in 94, when they're mandating pit stops. But I think it actually added something to the race in that you made these pit crews do 6 pit stops, in some cases 7, and the variance on how they were able to keep that efficiency through 7 pit stops or 6 pit stops during the day. But in Lewis Hamilton's case, his tire situation was not ideal. He was on soft tires. He was in a position where he could have possibly went and gotten around Max Verstappen and taken the lead, which on soft tires, who knows how long that really would have lasted, but he was in a position where he needed to get a lead or get himself in a advantageous position, but George Russell essentially didn't acknowledge that he was out there. Got sandwiched, I guess, and then in the end, him and Lewis get into an incident. Lewis gets knocked out on the spot, gets fined for crossing the racetrack. After said incident, George Russell goes all the way to tailback and comes back to finish 4th. The McLarens end up benefiting from the Mercedes carnage. Oscar Piastri, after a sprint win, finishes 2nd. Lando Norris finishes 3rd. Russell, Leclerc round out the top 5. Fernando Alonso was 6th. He was up front early in the race. Ocon, Bottas, and Zhou give Alfa Romeo 6 crucial points. And Sergio Perez, after a nightmare weekend and getting a lot of penalties, ends up finishing 10th. Gasly had a bunch of track limit penalties. Albon, amongst, I don't know how many guys had track limit penalties. So it was pretty ridiculous how that all worked out. Sainz didn't even start the race because he had a power unit issue, technical issue. Lewis falls out not even 2 corners into the race. Logan Sargent parks his car because he was going to hurl and pass out. There are a lot of guys that were in bad shape. I think Russell, by the end of the race, was so bad off that he was within 10 seconds of Lando Norris, and by the end of the race, he was 29 seconds behind Lando Norris because he was getting sick. A bunch of guys were getting sick at the end of the race. The joke, I didn't want to make it because it was in bad taste, so in poor taste on the Grid Talk, and that's not the kind of show you want to make that, but watching Fish Lips win makes me physically ill, but all these drivers were getting ill because of the heat and dehydration and all the stuff, and then having a sprint weekend too. It was a total clusterfuck at Qatar. The track itself, I don't think, is a bad track for Formula One. They only have one DRS zone, but there are a couple other places where you can pass. But having the race at this time of the year is probably not good. They're going to be racing in December next year when they run for Formula. I think it might end up being the season finale or the next to last race of the season. So hopefully that solves that issue. Hopefully by then they also solve the issues with the tires and the curbing, because it's not something, safety is a paramount concern for sure. But yeah, Fish Lips gets his 14th win of the year. after going and getting the championship. McLaren gets a double podium, and it's been a great run for them here since Silverstone, and they're looking like they could get themselves fourth in the Constructors' Championship the way things are going, Josh. But, I mean, status quo up front right at the top, but McLaren is making their presence known and possibly putting their mark on possibly contending for the first time since 2012 for a World Drivers' Championship and a Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think, besides Max Verstappen winning, which is, definitely not surprising there. I think the last, few races or so, McLaren has really turned a corner, and they've, gotten another double podium here in Qatar. So, as long as they continue their pace, throughout the end of the year and build on that and come out next year and they have speed, I definitely think that they could have a chance at potentially competing for a drivers' championship and definitely in the running for constructors' championship. They definitely have been able to work well together with Piastri and Norris. So, I think they, as long as they continue to get good results, they definitely can put themselves in position to, get out of the midfield, which they've been stuck in for the last, 2 or 3 seasons, and go out and get a potential contender for the constructors championship and everything, possibly a drivers championship as well. So obviously they've been working hard the last couple of years, and they're finally now getting good results as a team. So for McLaren, good result there, and maybe finally Lando Norris will finally get a win in Formula One. So we'll see what happens there. But as far as the race itself, you talk about mandatory pit stops because of the track limits and concerns over the curbs at circuit corners and how the severe edge of issue to the tires, to the surface, with how the cars are running over the curbs. And then, of course, they tried to make an adjustment in the sprint bit because the sprint was interrupted for multiple safety cars. They couldn't get enough data, and then they decided to cap the stint limits at 18 laps there. So, it makes it interesting in terms of strategy of when to pit, I guess. It's almost like having stage yellows in NASCAR, and having the Brickyard 400 in 2008, kind of like that in a way as well. So, unfortunate for Pirelli, and they couldn't figure that part out, and the track design as well for this racetrack having a factor in that. That's something that you don't want as well. So, that was obviously a factor that makes it interesting, but I think, if you're a racing team or a racing driver, you definitely don't want to be capped and have to deviate from what your strategy is, throughout the season and what you plan to have your strategy be, and then have to change it in the middle of a weekend. That's definitely not what you want to have, and definitely puts a different wrinkle into the weekend that you shouldn't expect to have. So, you have that, and of course the heat issues as well with Qatar. Drivers being dehydrated, and then also on top of that, you run a sprint race, so that adds to needing to stay hydrated and everything. So, that's obviously not a ideal issue there, and you have to wonder if maybe it's too hot in this region to run. And, I think if they should run, I think with the track issues that they've had, maybe you have to reconsider having this race on the schedule. So, I mean, kind of similar to heat issues in other series that we've seen in recent years. So, definitely not an ideal thing for these drivers to go through that and have to worry about that. So, that was an interesting part. And then, of course, the issue with Hamilton and George Russell yeah, I mean, I have to agree with you there. Just a racing incident, really. But I think Lewis and George Russell, they've got to figure something out here because they just haven't been able to be on the same page as of late, and now they're causing issues for themselves. Because I think they're both two competitive drivers. You have George Russell trying to prove himself in Formula One. You have Lewis Hamilton trying to claw and get everything he can before time runs out for him. So, I think Lewis, unfortunate that he got taken out early there, and possible podium finish potentially. With the good start that he had on soft tires, definitely taking away a potential good finish there. So, we'll see what happens as we'll go into the U.S. Grand Prix coming up. And that track, obviously, CoTA, very interesting. So we'll see how the tires are affected there, and if we see somebody else besides Max Verstappen. Now that he's won all the races in the championship, does he just coast the rest of the year and let somebody else win? We'll see.
I hope he would just not show up anymore, but I don't think we're going to get that wish. I think he's going to continue winning to set more records. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully McLaren can keep it interesting. Ferrari, because they have qualifying pace, and maybe even Mercedes, they're going to bring a new floor to CoTA for the U.S. Grand Prix. Maybe that'll help in that situation. The championship is over. Of course, for both championships, for at least the winning the championships. In terms of the drivers, Perez still holds second in the drivers' championship by 30 over Lewis Hamilton. Alonso is 11 points behind Lewis for third in the drivers. Carlos Sainz is fifth, 8 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is now in seventh. He is basically, so there's four drivers there: Sainz, Leclerc, Norris, and Russell, separated by 21 points between fifth and eighth. Oscar Piastri's in his own zip code. Then you have Stroll, who ended up assaulting his physio after another Q1 exit, proving once again that nepotism and being a piece of shit doesn't mean that you'll lose your ride. It just means that you just get to go and abuse people. He leads Gasly by 1 point and Ocon by 3 points. So the two Alpines trying to get themselves into the top 10 or give themselves a chance at 10th in the Drivers' Championship. Albon, then after that, Logan Sargent's the only full-time driver that hasn't scored points this year. So we'll see how he's able to respond going into CoTA for his home Grand Prix. I mean, the Miami race was essentially the closest thing to having a home Grand Prix for him, being a Florida kid. Then there'll be racing at CoTA, where he made his testing or made his practice debut last year, and then they'll be racing at Vegas. In terms of the constructors' standings, Ferrari is 28 points behind Mercedes for second. McLaren is now only 11 points behind Aston Martin for fourth in the constructors. So that's likely going to go McLaren's way, as it then Alpine's in their own world. Williams hasn't scored points recently. Alfa Romeo getting those 6 points puts themselves right back in a position to possibly get seventh in the constructors. They're only 7 points behind Williams. Haas is ninth, 4 points behind Alfa Romeo, and AlphaTauri rounding out the rear there with 5 points. And U.S. Grand Prix will be in a couple weeks' time, so we'll preview that on episode 191 of the Rip Strip Podcast. Yeah, so Josh mentioned football, Jacksonville getting a big win against the Buffalo Bills, taking 2 out of 2 in their London trip. Much needed after what has been a rough start to the season for the Jaguars. The Niners put a woodshed whipping on a sleep number bed, and the Dallas Cowgirls, they really weren't in that game at all. And it was fun to watch. Brock Purdy threw 4 touchdown passes, 3 of them to George Kittle, who it's his birthday today, so happy birthday, GK, favorite football player. He has a smoking hot wife and a smoking hot sister on top of that. But he's a great football player. He's going to be a future WWE champion or wherever he decides to go wrestle after he finishes his football career. Christian McCaffrey extended his streak to 14 consecutive games with a touchdown. Kyle Juszczyk got a touchdown. Jordan Mason got a touchdown. Basically, if you're on offense for the 49ers, there's a pretty good opportunity that you're going to get a touchdown because the Dallas Cowboys decided not to play defense, I guess. Dan Quinn's vaunted defense got absolutely picked apart. And so injury-wise, Dallas got hit with the injuries. Niners, knock on wood, were relatively all right. Injury-wise, little nicks here and there, but nothing severe. Buffalo lost, going into some of the key injuries, Buffalo lost Matt Milano for the year, broken leg and a knee. So bad situation for them after losing Tre'Davious White the week before. Anthony Richardson adds to his list of injuries he's had so far in his rookie year. Now he's got an AC joint sprain, so he's going to be out, it looks like, for a month. So Gardner Minshew, the former Jacksonville Jaguar, who they signed to be their backup, is going to be the starter, it looks like, at least for a month to 6 weeks. You have other guys. Justin Jefferson injured his hamstring yesterday during that Minnesota loss. They should have probably won that game, but it is the Chargers, etc. That's kind of what seems to occur. Ayuk was fine. Tank Dell's in concussion protocol. Trying to go through my team at least. This team, Raheem Mostert ends up they put him as questionable. He's got a knee injury of some sort. He's had issues with his knees, with ACLs and all that over the years. Wasn't as productive as Achane, so something to look at as the rest of the season goes. Jeff Wilson is eligible to come off of the IR. Jahmyr Gibbs did not play because of a hamstring injury, and he's now, obviously he isn't their lead running back. David Montgomery is their lead running back, so for people that drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, are just basically getting annihilated. Go into other injuries. Devontae Smith was a ghost yesterday, which was pretty bad. For me, the AJ Brown got a lot, and other guys were feasting, but it was not a pretty sight for Devontae Smith owners. Khalil Herbert injured, has a high ankle sprain after suffered a high ankle in the win on Thursday night, so now he's going to be out a while. It's bad to see for sure. Trying to go through here. Amon-Ra St. Brown was out last week with abdominal issue, so something to look at as we go through the rest of the season for the Detroit Lions' number 1 wide receiver, amongst other injuries that came up during this weekend. Fantasy-wise, my team in the Fall Brawl League got destroyed by Wilson's team, which is unfortunate, but that's, I guess, what happens. Some weeks it's like sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield, and that's really what kind of leads to that. And then that's really where we go with that. And then otherwise, Niners get the win. I'm winning in 2 of my leagues. I have to check the Dynasty one. The Dynasty one I have to go and check out of curiosity. It looks like, because it was somewhat of a contest, Oh no, so we're good. We're actually going to win our first game of the season, so that's nice. It's nice to finally get a win. Yeah, so that's that for me on my end. Josh, I mean your Jaguars get those 2 wins. Looks like things might be turning around as you have some crucial games as you come back home to this side of the pond. And I mean, the Niners are going to be playing the Jaguars coming off of their bye in a few weeks' time. So that'll be something to look at probably in a month from now. But right now, the Jaguars are in a division that's wide open. Tennessee is just scuffling. Houston takes a loss to Atlanta yesterday on a late drive. Then Indianapolis right now has got a lot of issues injury-wise. So Jacksonville, even with the start that they've had, still on pace to go and meet the goal of getting the division win and getting into the playoffs. It's just that hasn't been as pretty as you probably wanted it to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the question of this year's team with the Jaguars. I think we expected them to look like what the Dolphins look like right now on the offense with the addition of Calvin Ridley to the offense. Trevor in his second year under Doug Peterson, and the continued emergence of Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram. But it hasn't been like that. And I think all three of the wins that they've had been pretty much grinded out type of wins on the season. And I mean, it's because they decided not to do anything in free agency, and they were unable to correctly self-scout the issues on offensive line, and unable to bolster up the defensive line properly. So it's going to be things we deal with throughout the rest of the season. But this win here against the Bills, we gotta grind it out type of win, like I said, because the score was 11-7 for a good chunk of that game, and then at the end, Travis Etienne was able to get 2 touchdowns, so that definitely helped me in fantasy, which I'm glad. Trevor Lawrence touchdown to Zay Jones, so they forgot about Zay again there. So got another score there, and that helped me in fantasy as well. So for the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, Etienne doing well for me in fantasy. So hopefully that continues. And then defensively, they were able to put the Bills into situations that they didn't want to be in, and cause them to struggle throughout the game. So, Josh Allen versus Josh Allen again. Jaguars, Josh Allen wins. Bills are fake, in my opinion. I think they're one of the, as long as they continue to not run the ball that often, and put it all on Josh Allen, I don't think they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs as far as being a championship contending team. So and also because the Jaguars beat them, if they go in the playoffs, that's a very crucial tiebreaker to have against the Bills when it comes to playoff seeding and potential home field advantage, or at least temporary home field advantage. So you got that and everything, and the good win there, and of course some injuries on offensive linemen as well. Walker Little had a knee injury, and then Cam Robinson had an injury as well, so still a little bit dinged up there. And I think Cam Robinson came back in the game, but Walker Little left, so that's for offensive line. Still some issues there, so we'll see how it happens. I think they definitely played a little bit better offensively with Cam Robinson back in the lineup at left tackle. So although they still had some issues there as far as penalties and stuff and protection. Trevor had 2 fumbles lost in the red zone in crucial situations. So, still a little bit to work on, but definitely a grind it out type of game. And Gardner Minshew and the Colts coming to Northeast Florida to play against the Jaguars next weekend. So, early divisional matchup with both of them having a good record right now. So, we'll see if Jaguars can continue to build on their success here in London and go out and get a win against a divisional opponent, get a win against one of the former players that they drafted, someone that I think a lot of people still like here in Jacksonville. So bit of a homecoming there. I think Minshew still has a house here. He may or may not. So that's going to be interesting. And I think as long as they keep him in the pocket this game, I think they'll have an easy victory. That's how you shut down Minshew, is you don't let him get outside the pocket and create like he was able to do when he was here in Jacksonville. So, the game next weekend, that's going to be interesting. I'll be there. So, looking forward to going to the game and everything. So, that's good. Fantasy-wise, I already talked about Trevor and ETN. Got a big game from Brock Purdy, of course. So I was watching that game. Debo had some points as well, so that was good. And then I had good output from L'Jarius Sneed on defense. Gus Edwards didn't really do anything, but got enough points there to help me out and get a good win. Are you trying to change the points? Because I looked earlier and it was like 201, and then I looked earlier again and it was 193, and then as far as like the total points scored,
I adjusted the whatever scoring, so
okay.
So I think I put it back to what it was. So yeah, now it's back to what it should be. You won your matchup. You won it by nearly 100 points.
Yep.
So you'll be the blowout winner this week. So you move up to 5th. You're only a few points behind me, actually, for 4th. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams at 3 and 2. As it stands right now, Steve is going to take the lead. He'll be at 5-0 after beating Luke. Luke takes his first loss of the season, so that'll be something. Joe stays winless. Manny has lost 4 games in a row after winning week 1. Jeff gets his first win of the year, so that'll be something. We'll see how that all works out. It's a very tight between 3rd and 7th is a game, so points wise, of course, it all depends. So we'll see about how that goes.
So that's gonna be interesting. And definitely crushed Manny here. Good to crush a Steelers fan there. So I think being carried right now by Trevor and ETN and Brock Purdy, and Joe proposed a trade to me, so I'll see about that. He wanted me to trade a running back for a wide receiver, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Josh Reynolds, maybe he's coming into it because he had some points this week, and Michael Pittman. We'll see how he does with Minshew in the lineup versus Anthony Richardson. So that'll be interesting. I think we'll see how it goes next week. But good to have a winning record again after not having falling to 2-2. So good win there, and making it into week 5, and we get out of there and go to week 6. Looking to see who we play this week. I play Wilson next week, so that should be interesting with how his team's been doing. He's been kind of up and down compared to the past, so it's not as strong as what he was in the last couple of years. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think I'm playing. I have to go and see. I have to go and check it out because I was looking at Stat Tracker. Week 6, the lineup. I'll be playing Luke next week. If you mentioned you'll be playing Wilson, Jeff will be playing Steve, Joe and Matt will be playing each other, and then Manny and Vic. So that'll be week 6 matchups going in. I fall from 3-1 to 3-2. There was 4 teams at 2-2, so they see how that goes there. So Okay. All right. So that's football for now. The Raiders are up 17-13 with less than 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter here, Monday Night Football. So we'll see if the Raiders can actually hold on for a victory. Josh McDaniels and his inability to win games because he's a mediocrity and all. The GSP Roundup, we will start with the Bathurst 1000. Brody Kostecki ended up winning the pole for the Bathurst 1000, but in the end falls 20 seconds short. He was in second place, finished 20 seconds behind the winners, which are Shane Van Gisbergen and Richie Stanaway. They started fifth. The Triple Eight team, Red Bull team, gets that victory. Shane Van Gisbergen wins back-to-back Bathurst 1000s before he goes and comes here to the U.S. So that'll be something for him. As I mentioned earlier, the 88 car of Brock Feeney and Jamie Whincup, they were leading for a good amount of the race and were looking likely to win the Bathurst 1000, but unfortunately had issues after late in the race. So unfortunate for them, and it hurts them in the point standings for sure as well. SVG and Stanaway, the winners over Brody Kostecki and David Russell. The Dick Johnson Racing Shell V-Power team of Anton Di Pasquale, Tony D'Alberto, First Ford, started, or they were sixth. Yeah, so they started sixth, SVG, and then Di Pasquale, D'Alberto started fifth. Chaz Mostert and Lee Holdsworth started ninth, finished fourth. David Reynolds, Garth Tander from seventh to fifth, and then the Tickford 05 of James Courtney and Zach Best started 16th and finished sixth. So 4 Fords in the top 6 there. So interesting how that all worked out. Bryce Fullwood, Dean Fiore for Brad Jones Racing, Will Brown and Jack Perkins, Jack LeBrock, Jaden Ojeda, and then James Golding and Dylan O'Keefe, who started in the top 6, started in 4th, ends up finishing 10th. The points, the driver standings now leading into the next round. Brody Kostecki, with 6 wins and 7 poles this year, leads the points over Shane Van Gisbergen by 131 points. Will Brown is in third, 18 points ahead of Brock Feeney. The leading Ford driver is Chaz Mostert in 5th. Anton Di Pasquale moves himself up to 7th in points. Cam Waters has a nightmare weekend. Former one of the better drivers at Bathurst in recent years, has had issues this past weekend. So see how that all works out as they move to Adelaide for the last race of their season, or they're actually the next race. So you have 2 race rounds to go. They'll be at the Gold Coast at Surfers Paradise, and then Adelaide. So that's the end of October, and then the end of November at Adelaide. So 2 more rounds to go. How for the Supercars. MotoGP and Moto2 will be racing in Indonesia this coming weekend. The championship standings: Pecco Bagnaia is 3 points ahead of Jorge Martin for the MotoGP World Championship riders. Marco Bezzecchi is third, 61 points out of Brad Binder, and Alicia Spargro is in 5th, 9 points out of Johan Zarco. Vinales, Marini, Miller, Quartararo round out the top 10. Marc Marquez announces that he's leaving Honda and likely is going to join Gresini to ride with his brother, Alex Marquez, in that team. Still to be determined if he's going to be riding a new 24 Ducati, or if he's going to be racing a 23-year-old Ducati next year. Marc Marquez, who will be taking over his seat at Honda, is also to be determined. It looks like Iker Lecuona, the World Superbike rider, former MotoGP rider, but we will find out what happens with that. In terms of the Moto2 championship, Pedro Acosta has a 50-point lead. He was also announced as a rider for Gas. He'll be racing with Augusto Fernandez next year, and Pol Espargaro is going to take the year to be a test rider and run a bunch of wild cards. He was the one that took the bait and decided he will take the year off, essentially. I mean, he's not taking a year off, but he won't be a full-time rider. That was close. There was a penalty or something going on. I don't know. It looks like a bunch of questions going on there, but yeah, it looks like the Raiders won. Arbolino in second, Jake Dixon in third, Canet, Lopez round out the top five. Canet, Lopez, Chantra. If you go all the way down, Chantra, Salek, Vietti, and Gonzalez, all 20 points separate those riders. Ayagura rounds out the top 10. In NHRA, moving into the Texas Fall Nationals this coming weekend at Dallas, Texas Motorplex, Doug Coletta takes a 47-point lead into Dallas in his Mac Tools dragster over Leah Pruitt, 51 over Steve Torrance, 77 over Justin Ashley, and 96 over Antron Brown. In Funny Car, Bob Tasca has a 6-point lead over Robert Height, 13 over Matt Hagan, and 33 over Ron Capps. Pro Stock Car, Eric Enders leads by 25 over Greg Anderson, 38 over Matt Hartford, 64 over Dallas Glenn, and 73 over Aaron Stanfield. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Gage Herrera, 99 points ahead of Matt Smith, 126 over Hector Rana, and 129 over Eddie Krawick. Gage Herrera, basically, if he can get a round win or two, at least a round win each race here for the next 4 races, I think he's probably going to end up winning his first Pro Stock Motorcycle title. I have a hard time seeing it not being the case there. So we'll see what happens. In terms of the top alcohol dragster category, Tony Stewart is 3, and then 14, 9, 5, 50. No, that's not right. 6. It's 6 and 57. Yeah, it's 63 points behind Julie Natus, who has run one less national event than Tony, and they've run the same amount of divisional events. I think you're able to run 7 divisional events, so they have to both run one more of those. I think the maximum is 8 in the national, so with the Lucas Oil Championship, each driver in top all earned points at the first 5 regional and first 10 nationals. A driver's best 3 regional and best 7 national finishes from their eligible points, will constitute their Lucas Oil Drag Racing National Championship points total. Regional, for home region, points up to 7 regional events we credit with their best 5. So still a lot to play for. Tony still in position to possibly win the top alcohol dragster title. He has 2 more national events he can put in for versus 3 for Natus. And, so in terms of the divisional rounds, it's a little closer. So see how that all works out. Petit Le Mans coming up the end of the 2023 IMSA season. A lot of things moving in terms of sports cars, but championships to be decided. The Drivers' Championship, you have the Wheel and Engineering 31 with Pippo Durrani and Alexander Sims. They'll have Jack Aiken as a third driver. They're trying to hold off the Porsche Penske Motorsports team of Tandy and Jaminet and Lawrence Vantor. You have also the Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Lee Deltraz, Konica Minolta, Acura. They're also in play, and I think one of the BMWs is in that as well. last race for Meyer Shank Racing with Acura before they give that car over to Wayne Taylor and Andretti Racing. There will be 10 GTP cars with the 2 customer Porsches from JDC Miller and Proton. And then the 2 BMWs have been there all year, the 2 Acuras, the 2 Porsches from Penske, and then the 2 Cadillacs from Ganassi and Whelen Engineering. And LMP2, 9 entries. The championship has been determined, I believe, in that not the 52, but I think the 04. I shouldn't say that as though it's absolutely. I should go and tell the LMP2 championship going. Okay, so that wasn't championships on the line. Yeah, Joseph Newgarden is going to be making his debut at Petit Le Mans in a prototype, driving the number 7 with Matt Campbell and Felipe Nasr. So that'll be interesting. Grand Sport Touring Car Class Championship. Oh, that's Michelin Pilot Challenge. That's not what I wanted. Yeah, so for LMP2, is a 2 of the 3 drivers standings. LMP2 Pro-Am winner Lassar, Stephen Thomas, George Kurtz. Thomas and Mikkel Jensen lead the standings in the number 11 TDS car, while Paul Loop-Chatin and Ben Keating 20 points back into 52, fielded by PR1 Matheson. Kurtz and Ben Hanley are 100 points back. So those are all the teams that are involved in that for the driver teams. And then also for the Truman Trophy, Thomas, Keating, and Kurtz are all tied. Whoever finishes best will win the award and an invite to Le Mans next year. So that's something to look at with how tight the field is and how condensed the field is in general. Trying to get through. Yeah, Pfaff Motorsports going to McLaren. I mentioned that. Aston Martin's going to be racing in both IMSA and in WEC next in 2025 with their Valkyrie car. So that'll be cool to see that car make it out on the grid. In LMP3, so you got AWA, you have the Andretti Autosports actually running with Glenn Van Berlo, Chavez, Jared Andretti. The last time they'll be racing in that category before they go and commit to GTD. There will be last race also for Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Josh Bourdon, and the Riley 74. They'll be moving up to LMP2 next year. Pietro Fittipaldi coming back to race for Rick Ware. See some of these other ones. Yeah, Josh Pearson, blah, blah, blah. GTD Pro, 8 cars in the GTD Pro, 2 Ferraris, 1 from AF Corsa, and 1 from Risi Competizione, being added to the usual 5 cars that have made up, and then also the Iron Lynx, number 63. Oh no, they've been in the field, yeah. So that's been the Corvette. The last time the Corvette will be in this with the GT2 combination, Garcia, Taylor, and Milner before they become a customer team. The Corvettes. Then you have the last race for Pfaff as a Porsche team. Vassar Sullivan with Hawksworth, Barnicoat, Kyle Kirkwood. Harder Racing announced that they're going to be racing that Aston Martin in GTP in a couple of years' time. Hawksworth, Barnicoat, Ross Gunn, Alex Riberas, David Pittard. You have Iron Lynx with Lamborghini, 2 Ferraris, and then WeatherTech with the Mercedes. GT Daytona, 19 cars in that field. That Paul Miller Racing's won the Sprint Cup, won the regular they won the title for the Sprint Cup, and then in general for the class. So it's just about the Michelin Endurance Championship for some of these classes. trying to see if there's any other changes from the usual teams that show up for these races, and there isn't or outside of the Ferrari 023 Ferrari. Well, that's a new car. I don't think they've been around since Daytona or Sebring, so we'll see what goes on with that, but otherwise all the usual suspects there. Nothing else that I saw of significance, so we'll move forward to the Cup and Xfinity at Las Vegas. Just want to go back into the picks. Out of curiosity, last week I picked first, so Josh, you get to pick first here on the Xfinity side for the Alsco Uniforms 302. 40 cars for 38 spots. Some of the people that were gonna... Oh, wow, Ryan Reed. Jesus.
He's in this.
Yeah, I just noticed that. He's driving for Carl Long this weekend.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, see nothing crazy there. None of that. Greg Alding back in the 07. Stephen Parsons stays in the 08. Hamrick in the 10. Lane Riggs in the 11. Wyatt Snyder back in the 19. Connor Mozak, 24. Kyle Segan, the 29. Joey Gase and Patrick Emmerling driving for their own team. Graff in the 38. Ellis, Daniel Dye in the 44 again. And Rajah Caruth back in the 45. Kligerman, Ryan Reed, Dawson Cram in the 74. Kyle Weatherman in the 91. And CJ McLaughlin in the 28. So I kind of have an idea where you're going with who you're going to take for the winner. So I guess the better question is who you're going to take as your wild card for this weekend at Las Vegas. But maybe you'll surprise me on this one for who you're looking at for Vegas.
Well, I think the winner, I'm going to go with John Hunter Nemechek this weekend. I think he's been the best on the mile and a halfs this season, so I'll go with him as my winner. And then wild card, this is the tougher question, right? Because there's so many guys, and you guys got back markers and all that stuff. So, I'll go with let's see here. I'll go with Parker Retzlaff. Let's see, he's done well in mile and a halfs, relatively speaking. So I'll go with him. See if he can get a top 15 finish here. So, or top 10, something like that. So that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, the Xfinity Series here at Las Vegas. I mean, I almost wanted to go Austin Hill for the sweep, but I think John Hunter is just a little bit better than him on pace right now. So I see him winning this more than I do Austin Hill.
Yeah, and by doing that, he locks himself into the Final Four. It's not like I would doubt that he would make the Final Four anyway, but if he wins, then he locks himself in and gets a couple of weeks to prepare for Phoenix. He's been in that position before in the Truck Series and promptly spit the bit driving for Kyle Busch Motorsports. So we'll see what happens if he were to get into the same position here for Gibbs, the team that won the championship last year. For me, I am going to end up going with Cole Custer. It'll be his first win on an oval this year. It probably would make more sense for me to pick him at Homestead, but I would have picked Josh Berry, but it doesn't seem like the momentum is going their way. Actually, no, wait a minute. I'm actually gonna pull an audible. I'm gonna say Justin Allgaier to win.
Okay.
Which I think is probably a little more plausible, but it wouldn't be surprising that Custer gets the victory. My wild card for this weekend will be somebody that could finish in the top 20. Somebody that can finish in the top 20, I figure will be Yeah, man, this is a tough one. I will go with Stephen Parsons. Why not? You can't go wrong with the mullet. Stephen Parsons. These ran pretty solid for what the equipment is there, so that's what I'll go with. So Allgaier to win. Parsons wild card. Vegas Cup Series. Delete that. I'm actually gonna delete that because I'm not ready to just delete. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the Cup Series South Point 400 at Las Vegas. Chastain will be racing Worldwide Express this weekend. Auto Trader on Gumby's car. BetMGM on Bald Spot Dylan. Mobile One for Kevin Harvick. Valvoline for Larson. Build Submarines for Keselowski. Nagu for LaJoy. Morgan and Morgan for Kyle Busch. Lumar Window Film for William Clyde Elliott II. IHOP again for Eric Almirola. Mavis for Hamlin. Menards for Blaney. Code 3 Associates will be on the 14 for Chase Briscoe. Brennan Poole will be driving the 15. AJ Allmendinger, Nutrient Ag Solutions. Chris Buescher, Travel Centers of America. Bass Pro for Truex. Ream for Christopher Bell. Dex Imaging for Harrison Burton. Benzoil for Logano. DoorDash and Roku for Bubba. Relay Payments for William Byron. Leaf Filter for Haley. To be determined for McDowell. Frontline Enterprises, whatever that is, for Todd Gilliland. Haas Tooling for Ryan Preece. Hocevar and Jones with the Maury Gallagher sponsorship. Tyler Reddick with the Jordan brand. Richard with Smith's and Drumstick Ice Cream on the 47. Ally Bowman. Yaley in the 51. Monster Energy for Keebler. Gainbridge on the 77 for Ty Dillon. BJ McLeod. And then Tootsie's for Daniel Suarez. All right, so Vegas, first race of the round of 8. Who will give themselves a chance to possibly lock themselves into the final 4? I think that it kind of leans one of 3 ways for me in terms of drivers, based on not just recency bias, but the way the playoffs have gone. But I look at this weekend's race, and I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick gets the win, locks himself into the final 4 at Vegas. Tyler Reddick. I'll say Reddick to win and lock into final 4. Probably have to do that amendment on the Xfinity, but whatever. My wild card will be Carson Osavar. Why not? It's easy because he's been racing really well in his races so far in the Legacy Motor Club 42, and they've been on a good upswing. So I say Tyler Reddick takes some momentum they've had from the cookie cutters, gets that victory, locks himself into his first Final 4 as a Cup driver, and gets the 3 weeks to prepare for Phoenix. And Carson Hocevar is my wild card. What say you, Josh? Who do you pick for your winner and wild card for Vegas?
Yeah, for me, for Las Vegas, I'm going to go with William Byron sweeping the Las Vegas races this year to lock himself in the Championship 4. They are definitely strong in the spring, so I expect them to be up there racing, for the win and get that spot there for the Final 4. So my wild card, I'm gonna go a little different here. I'm gonna pick Ty Gibbs to be my wild card, which is a little maybe a little out there, but the Joe Gibbs cars definitely do run well on the 1.5 miles. And he's been somebody I think should have probably done better in the 1.5 miles this year, but he's been pretty good as of late. So I will pick him, and yeah, he let's see what he can do. It's a pretty decent hedge for a wild card, even though he's a rookie. So, I think the Toyotas will definitely have a good weekend. But overall, what William Byron goes out and locks himself into the championship for the first time in his career. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That was one of the three drivers I had in mind. It was either Byron, Hamlin, or Reddick. So I went with, I guess my fandom and wanting what I would like to see win in a sense. I mean, I would rather see one of the Ford guys, whether it's Blaney or Buescher, but I'm a fan of Reddick, so it'd be cool to see that. But we'll see what happens. I think Byron is definitely the favorite. And Dennis Hamlin is trying to do what he can to get that victory early so he can prepare for Phoenix as well. All right, so it's time, Josh, for you to talk about all things sim racing gaming on your sim segment and recent news from iRacing and recent announcements. And then you also have other things going on with motorsport games with the IndyCar game too.
Yeah, this is we have some actual real news here in the sim racing segment. I mean the motorsport games property of NASCAR console games has been acquired by iRacing, and so now in 2025 we will get a NASCAR console game finally, and this is probably going to be one of the most anticipated console releases for NASCAR games in quite a while. We know what iRacing's reputation is as a sim racing game, and we know what they can produce. They've already had years and years of with producing content for NASCAR on all three series. So, they've had the simulation aspect down, relatively. I mean, they've had issues, but they've had that part down for quite a while. They've had the tracks down for quite a while. So, the other part is just to make it enticing for gamers. Obviously, they've had a simulation part of it. I mean, if they wanted to, they could probably just make the Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo Switch versions relatively quickly for just the racing simulation part of it. But of course, the game aspect is do they want career mode or season mode or anything like that, or single player mode AI racing. We've seen them this year add AI racing to their platform on the Cup Series and expanded that through multiple series that they have, multiple cars on the PC games. So now they're expanding into console games. So expect this one to look like iRacing, similar to it. So definitely looking forward to seeing this come out. We'll see how it goes with the development and what modes and aspects are they going to put into this game. Definitely hopefully it's something similar to what we had the EA Sports, where you had the career mode where you could start from scratch and work your way up through the ranks, or something like that, or have a full season mode where you could race as one car and go throughout the season. I did that before, and I liked that. So in the EA Sports game, so that should be interesting. But yeah, NASCAR has been partnered up with iRacing for years on the PC side, and now they're going full circle on the console side, and I think it'll be good for both partners. NASCAR having a credible partner here in the console side to help them get outreach to people who play console games, and then on the other end, iRacing gets more exposure from the console side, and if they have a good console game for NASCAR, then maybe that'll draw in people for the simulation on PC to play their other sim cars and besides NASCAR. So that should be interesting. Keep in mind that they've also had a partnership with the World of Outlaws game that's been out for a couple years now, or year and a half or something like that. So, I think that game's been doing pretty well. So, obviously, iRacing very established. Certainly has a lot more credibility in the industry than Motorsport Games does. So, looking forward to seeing how this comes out. And on the other end, yes, the IndyCar game, which for whatever reason, it's like, well, they've been halted development on it. I've seen, screenshots and stuff of what the game looks like, but I don't think it's ever going to come out. And Motorsport Games, I don't know what they're doing. Roger Penske, please rectify this decision and get them back with iRacing or whoever, and maybe have iRacing make an IndyCar game on console. Go back full circle to the very beginning when Papyrus released the first true motorsport simulation with Indianapolis 500, the simulation back in the late 80s, I think, there. So why can't we do that for the IndyCar game, and then also get back the Indy 500 on iRacing, and so that me and other people can go on there and try to win that race like I did last year. So we'll see how it goes, but this is a pretty significant development here, and I think a lot of people are going to be looking forward to playing a true NASCAR console game for the first time in several years. So that's going to be something to look forward to. As far as the iRacing part, or when my iRacing, as far as that goes, been concentrating on the Draftmaster Series, Daytona, racing the 87s and the repaved Daytona, and I had to go find some setups online to go out and try and run there. So I did that and ran several races, avoided a ton of wrecks, got some wrecks that I just narrowly missed somehow. So I've got to go back and to the replay booth and maybe splice some of that up together, because it was actually kind of interesting seeing that take place and being like, holy crap, how the hell did I actually miss that wreck and everything. So gonna have to go back and put that together, and maybe put that on YouTube or something like that, or tag iRacing and maybe they'll put that in their highlights. But yeah, that was just a lot of carnage that took place often in the early portions of the 20 lap sprint, because it's everybody's in a pack. The 87 cars, there are a lot of handling aspects to it. If you got too close, to get aero loose and spin out. Certainly happened to me towards the end of a tire run, and the racing where you get spread out and tires are worn out, and somebody gets up on you and on your rear bumper, and you get aero loose and spin out pretty quickly. So had that happen a couple of times. Had a couple of times where I just got loose and was trying to save it, and then somebody just couldn't lift and ran in the back of me. So I had that a couple of times as well. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. Running 225 in the Cup car, in the 87 car, having at the repaved Daytona Speedway. So that's pretty interesting. Haven't had that type of ability. Having run the 87s on the 2008 oval in iRacing, so definitely had fun doing that. But it was definitely challenging because of the handling aspects of the tires going away over the course of a run, and trying to keep up with other people on open setup. So that was pretty interesting as well. So I think this week they have it on Talladega this week, and it's probably going back to the Truck Series car or truck. So looking forward to trying that on iRacing and doing the Draftmaster Series. And then also I did one Xfinity race in the ovals, or not the oval, but on the Roval. So trying to get the road course skills up there as well. Just ran patiently and started, I think, in 12th and finished 7th in a 20 lap race. So yeah, that was pretty good. And I think this week on iRacing, it's going to be NASCAR at Las Vegas, NASCAR, all the 3 series at Las Vegas, and might have to get, I actually don't have Las Vegas, so maybe I have to get that one and get on there for this week's series of racing. Watkins Glen, the IMSA fixed racing series. That's going to be interesting there for roadside. You got the Formula Fords at Oran Park, which is always a good one. The Toyota GR Series, GR86 at Knock Hill Racing Circuit. LMP2s at Watkins Glen as well. So a little bit of Watkins Glen there late in the year. Mustang Skip Barber Challenge at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. Always good for me being able to run there. LMP3s at Imola at Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Di Dino Ferrari Grand Prix circuit there. If you got the I guess the Formula One Grand Prix series at Spa, that's going to be interesting as well. You have the looking at the other tracks, and then MX5 at Oran Park Raceway as well. So that should be fun. Looking at the oval side, if I can get it to come up on the oval side here. Got the Arca Menard series at the old Michigan International Speedway. As I mentioned, NASCAR all at Las Vegas, including the Truck Series. Super late models at Bristol. Delara Dash at Michigan International Speedway, so that'll be really fast. Gen 4 at Montreal. That's an interesting one there. Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. That was a good track for the Xfinity Series when they ran there, especially in the old car. Let's see, where's the 87s? 87s are at the Willow Springs International Raceway, so a non-NASCAR track that they're competing at. That's an interesting choice there by the schedule makers. So that's something fun. I've never raced there before. I've seen videos of that. That's not even really a racetrack. It's more of a club racetrack that, I think they Skip Barber and stuff like that they race at. So that's an interesting choice by the schedule makers. So and then IndyCar at Pocono, so might do some of that too. So yeah, of course, always good slate of races this week on iRacing as always. So looking forward to trying to compete there and go on iRacing and run there. So if I try to stream, obviously stream at Twitch TV/usailor2 and go in there and see all my streams and all my videos in there. I'll try to have that up if I do stream, and then the Twitter account will try to announce there as well, and as well as all my takes from anything from racing or football wise at JP Huffine on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days. And then you have the YouTube page where we'll have this up there later in the week. YouTube at GSP Podcast. So go on there and subscribe and interact with our videos. So yeah, and of course, good week or good start to the week with Jaguars winning fantasy. Good win there, and plenty of action in the racing weekend. And looking forward to the next slate of races, and looking forward to attending the game on next Sunday against the Colts. So we'll see how it goes there. But as far as this week, glad as always to be able to discuss. And of course, we'll be able to talk about it next week as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Wouldn't do it with anyone else, of course. Another episode down, getting close to that, of course, 200 number. It's crazy to think. Doing this for 4 years, and now we're at 190 episodes. It's pretty badass. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter X. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. Definitely follow our YouTube page for the video feeds of the show. You can find the Gripster Podcast on Podbean, which was our host site, but you can also find it on basically anywhere you can get podcasts. You can also find it at philipgmatthew.com, which is my blog site. We'll be back next week for episode 191 of the Gripster Podcast, where we will review Cup and Xfinity at Las Vegas. We'll preview Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks at Homestead, the U.S. Grand Prix at CoTA preview. We will also review MotoGP, Moto2, NHRA, IMSA Petit Le Mans and NFL Week 6. And Josh will let us know everything in the world of sim racing on a sim segment. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to the Grip Strip podcast, and we'll see you next time.